evening, everyone. I hope you've had a good week and you're looking forward to the bank holiday weekend. And thank you for joining us tonight on this collaborative webinar between Property Tribes and Lendlord, where we are going to be giving a demo of the integration of Lendlord with Xero. And we're calling this webinar How to Automate Your Cash Flow Tracking. And Avram is joining me as always from Tel Aviv. And Avram, the integration of Xero was something that a lot of the users of Lendlord had kind of been asking you about. It was on the roadmap, but really due to consumer demand or user demand, you've actually brought it forward, haven't you, and brought it earlier into the development cycle.
Yes, definitely. And so hi, Vanessa, and hi, everyone. Yes, I think even in the webinar series, like we saw, like every time we get questions, what about the integration to Xero? So what we found is that many landlords use accounting software. The accounting software already linked to their bank account. So today we have basically both options. So you can link Lendlord directly to your bank accounts. And here we use Plaid as our provider, the FCA regulated company that implemented the open banking. So all the connection and communication is fully secured. The second option now is to connect your accounting software, and we will show it like in a few minutes. And the first one we chose is Xero. From our research is I think Xero, Sage, and perhaps QuickBooks are like the highest with in terms of usage in the UK. So the plan is to add more as we go, but we started with Xero. So today you can integrate either your bank account directly or your accounting software. If the accounting software is already linked to your bank account, you will get all the transactions automatically to your Lendlord account.
So what Lendlord is really turning into is just a landlord dashboard where you can literally do almost every landlord activity in one place. And as we add each new integration, that whole process is becoming smoother, more efficient. It's going to save landlords time. And we've had very positive response from the users that the Xero has now been integrated, haven't we?
Yes. Many are happy with that because there is like another way to integrate and automate their transactions. So yes, definitely.
Fantastic. Well, we are going to give a short demonstration of how this all works, but just first of all, really just to set the scene, Avram is quickly going to give a high-level overview of the Lendlord cash flow module, which obviously will then lead on to the demonstration of how Xero is actually integrated into the Lendlord platform. So Avram, would you like to go with that?
Yes. So I think, so let's start with the high-level overview because it's very important. There are some few important notes that people need to be aware before you start dealing with your cash flow on Lendlord. So the goal of this webinar is to basically give you a high-level overview on how you can automate the entire process. So I will go step by step, and then we'll touch on the profit and loss page. This is basically the cash flow module. So if you already have an account, or like this is your first time that you just created an account and you want to get started, My Portfolio is the first page you need to visit. So here you should add your properties. You can now also upload a spreadsheet. If you maintain a portfolio spreadsheet, you can basically upload it in one click and map your fields from your spreadsheet to the Lendlord fields. Or you can use the sidebar and start adding your properties. There are no mandatory fields. We recommend just to put the general fields and the mortgage fields. Click done, and basically you have the first property. After that, don't worry, you can keep tweaking this property. So after you define your properties, go to your My Tenants page. So this is the second step. The My Tenants is important to track your rent collection. So in My Tenants, make sure you define all of your tenants. It's again, you can click Add Tenant and you have the right sidebar to add all the details. Make sure that you enter the tenancy start date, tenancy end date, attach it to a property from the properties on my portfolio, put the rent payment of this tenant, the frequency, is it a monthly, weekly, bi-weekly? What was the first payment date? This will help the platform build for you the payment schedule. And if it's a rolling tenancy, this is something new. So if you don't have an end date, or if you want that the end date will not stop the tracking of the platform, just pick yes in rolling tenancy, and the payment schedule will continue to grow after the tenancy end date. So then you have the tenants here. The third step is to go to the rent collection page. And here you should see that you have the payment schedule set up. So you see I have 4 tenants. Each tenant has different payment. And this is the expected date. And now all what we need is to start tracking the rent. And when we track the rent, we will track also the expenses. So, so this is like the setup. This is like the first step you need to do. Vanessa, is it clear so far? If so, we can continue. It's still like the overview of the cash flow. We didn't finish that.
I was just going to add, Aviram, that we do have webinars on all of these individual topics. So if you want to take a little bit of a deeper dive on anything that Aviram has just given an overview for, there are individual webinars on property tribes that you can look in the Lendlord Digital Life category on property tribes. They're all curated there, but also on Lendlord's YouTube channel, you will find all of these previous webinars that we've done. I think we're up to 11 or 12 now. And also Avram has also done some short educational demonstration videos as well. So if you go to the Lendlord YouTube channel, there's a lot of additional information that you can watch and take in at your leisure. But I think you'll find once you get into the platform that, you know, a lot of it is very, very intuitive, and you can't really do anything wrong or press a wrong button or whatever. You know, you'll find your way around quite easily. And Avram, of course, if people have any questions, there is the chatbot function on the Lendlord website, and there's the opportunity to book an actual personal demonstration with Avram and his team. So we just kind of just doing a basic overview tonight, but for those of you that want to dig a little bit deeper or need more assistance in understanding each individual module, then there are facilities to support you in finding out more.
Yes, thank you, Vanessa. Okay, so like in a brief, I will go now to the profit and loss page. So after you set up your tenants and the payment schedule, go to the profit and loss page. So for this, the example for today, I entered like a new property, 323, that I purchased in January 2021, for the example. I kept the historical empty on the profit and loss. The way to do it is when you add the property on my portfolio, you will get a pop-up that will ask you if you want to get the rental income and the mortgage cost or the landlord insurance that you typed in my portfolio to the history. If you click don't apply, then you will have empty profit and loss page. So this is for users that wants now to take care of the historical data using the transactions page. Okay, so the profit and loss page basically track your income and expenses on each property, and it can also track your, of course, history, and from now onward. So this webinar, because the focus is integration to Xero and bank account, I will show you how you do it from the transactions page. There are also other ways that you can do it, like manually. So let's go to the transactions page. So the first thing you need to do is to choose the option you want to retrieve the transactions. You can use the import, and when you choose import, basically you can upload a CSV file with all of your historical income and expenses. It can be if you download your bank statement. You have an example file, you can review it. And as Vanessa mentioned, we have a webinar on that. So in the email that we'll send with the recording, I can also attach a link to this webinar so you can see how to do it. The second option is to link your bank account. So today you have two options to get transactions from a bank account. Either you link directly your bank account, and here you will get the wizard of Plaid. This is the provider that we use. You click continue, you search for your bank account, and then you will be redirected to the web page of your bank account to put your credentials. Everything is secured. And once you do that, the connection is created, and Landlord will have read access to your transactions through Plaid. We don't have any access to your credentials. It's just every day, the API send us the transactions from your bank account. You can link more than one bank account if you have. The new option that we released this week is the Xero integration. So if you have a Xero account and you manage organizations there and you link them to bank account, you can click on link to Xero. Then you see that you redirected to their website. You need to put your credentials to your Xero account. And then you need just to select the organization you want. I already connected it, so it won't connect now, but you just need to select the organization you want to link to Landlord and click on continue, and the connection will be created. Now, once you did that, you will get this window. So Landlord was able to retrieve 14 new transactions from your bank account or from Xero. It doesn't matter. It's the same behavior. It's the same user interface. Once you linked either your bank account or Xero, you will get this wizard. And from now on, every day, the platform will retrieve new transactions. And every day that you log into the platform, you will get this wizard. If you miss this wizard, don't worry. All the transactions are in the transactions page. So let's start with the wizard. So if you recall, the main goal now is to update the historical data of the new property that I just purchased in January 2021. I click continue. So the first transaction is from January 1st. This is the rent income of Ellen, one of my tenants. I just need to allocate this income. So I pick the property. I picked the right payment. So you see, I want to track it on the payment of January. And I click allocate. And then I will get the next one. So this is my mortgage payment. So I link it to the property. And I can also pick a category, and I will put it as a mortgage costs. If I'm not happy with the categories of the platform, I can click on the pencil. I can update the text. I can also change the color, or I can delete the category as well. I can also add new categories. So it's not a, so basically you can build your own category list. It's very flexible. and I click Allocate. Then another expense, this is the landlord insurance for January. The platform already identified that this is insurance category, and I will continue now to map all the transactions. So this is the rent for February. Allocate. Insurance. Now there is now a roof repairs that like a company that I use to repair my roof. This is like for another different property, so I can select a different property. And I will categorize as a repair, and I click Allocate. When I click Allocate, by the way, all the transactions will be tracked on the profit and loss page and on the rent collection. I will show it in a sec. This is an accounting expense. So I paid my accountant. I want to track it on the entire portfolio. So this is another feature. You can track expenses not attached to a specific property, but to like a global entity, entire portfolio. And category accounting fees. This is the category. I click Allocate. Now I can also click handle it later from the transactions page. So I don't want to allocate it now. So I will see it after that on the transactions page. Let's do it also for this and for this. Now, all the transactions, and this is like the topic of this webinar is automate your cash flow. So this is it. When the platform starts to retrieve the transactions from the last 30 days, you will get an option to choose if it's a one payment or is it a recurring transaction. And if you choose a recurring transaction and you map it to this property and to this tenant, and when you click Allocate, the platform will remember this transaction based on the description and the amount. And next month, it will allocate it automatically to this property and to this tenant. You will receive an email with a summary how many transactions were allocated automatically. And after that, I will show you the transaction logs. So here you can see all the activity, what the platform allocated automatically and what you allocated manually. And you can also revert from there, so don't worry. So I click now Allocate, and I mark it as a recurring expense. I can do it income. I can do it as well for my mortgage and for my landlord insurance as well. That's it. So this is a summary. I allocated 11 transactions and I ignored 3 transactions. So basically I can allocate them after that. Yes, Vanessa?
I was just really going to kind of summarize, Avraham, that when you first link Lendlord to Xero, there is this little process that you've just been through to allocate and map the connections and the transactions so that the right expense is being allocated to the right property and so on. Once you've gone through that just initial setup, then it starts to get a whole lot easier. You have the option to do it on the recurring basis where the software will recognize that transaction and automatically map it to the correct field. Or the other option, as you've demonstrated, is to do it manually. And we've heard from Lendlord users that they develop their own little routine of how they use Lendlord, and some people, for instance, will go on, in the morning for 20 minutes and just go through everything and make their allocations, and that's pretty much it. So, with any software, the first initial bit is always the most time consuming, because you've got to actually put the data in the software and map everything and hook everything up. But once you've done that, then life gets a whole lot easier, doesn't it, Avraham? So, the more that you use these different functions, the more you're moving towards a much more kind of automated landlord life. And that's really the nirvana and the utopia that landlords are going to realize is possible for them now, thanks to software like Lendlord.
Yes, absolutely. And this is the fun, like it's automated. You can sleep, then you know that your transactions are working for you, but it's still like in control. So let's say that, like just like allocate these three, and then I will show like why it's like still in control. I will see the transactions logged, so you can basically review what happened. So it's not like a black box. You can take a look what was allocated automatically and what was allocated manually. And you can also revert some of the transactions that were already allocated and allocate them back. So another way not to use the wizard is to use just a transactions page. So you can ignore the wizard and do everything that I did before from here. So I can take the March expenses and income and do it from here. I will allocate the landlord insurance. I will allocate the income of March, and I will allocate the mortgage costs of March as well. I can use this icon to allocate them, or I can just select all of the transactions and click on allocate transactions from here. It will ask me if I want, yes. And I have everything now on the profit and loss page. So if I go to the property, you can see all the historical data is now up to date. I can review it from here as well. And I will show you the transaction audit in a sec. From here, by the way, you can also edit the transaction, the expense. You can also upload a receipt if you want to keep track all the receipts. You can also upload them to Lendlord. And as I promised, let's go to the transactions log. So the transactions log basically is a table. In the table, you can see all the operations that you did. So you can see that these are like the last thing that we did today. So you see the date, the bank account, the name of the transaction, the amount, and what happened. So this was allocated manually. This was allocated automatically. And you can see like on which month of the profit and loss, you can find this transaction if you got lost. And if you want to revert and to undo the operation, you can just use this icon, and then it will come back to the transactions page. Another thing, Vanessa, I want to see before we go, perhaps if we have questions.
Yeah, we do. We have some good questions coming in.
Okay, so one important thing. So we map the transactions, but then you ask yourself, okay, but what about the rent collection? How can I track the rent collection? So if you go back to the My Tenants page and you click on rent collection, let's use just the property that we just worked on, 323. So you can see now that it was also tracked for you. So basically, now you see that Alan should have paid 2,300. He paid because you allocated the transaction. So when you allocate a transaction, it will also allocate it here. So you don't need to type it manually. And by the way, there are users that do it manually from here. It's also okay, but you can do it from the transactions from the opposite. So if you allocate a transaction and you allocate it to a property and to a tenant, the platform automatically will update your rent collection page. So in the dashboard, you have the widget of the rent collection, so you can see the status of rent collection every month. And you can also get reminders if there is an overdue from a tenant that didn't pay on time. Yeah.
Awesome. We've got a good question in here, Avram, from Lucy. And this is an interesting one because it's something that is discussed on Property Tribes on a fairly regular basis, and that's landlords that are taking larger, upfront rent payments. So some landlords are taking 3 months in advance, or tenant is offering 6 months in advance. If the tenant was making an advanced rent payment, how would you log that on Lendlord? So let's say they were going to pay 3 months rent in advance.
Good question. So basically, let's do it. So basically, they pay, let's say in January, they paid for 3 months. So it is one transaction. I'll try something, see if it works. So I will use the split. We have the split function, okay? So let's allocate it to 65 London Wall. I click split. And here, basically, I can split one income into several. And it was designed to split the transaction from your property manager, to split it to a rent and a management fee. But you can also use it for, let's say, 3 different incomes. So the first one was January. The second one will be February. And the third one will be March. So I can change now the description. Rent Jan, rent Feb. I'll choose the same property. And then I just need to pick the payment for the month. Let's say it's Ray. I'll just do March. Okay. So basically, let's say I get from the bank account, or I can do it manually. 2,400. I can split it to 3 different transactions of 800. Okay. See, like the original description was the same. So if you want to change, you can change it from the transactions page. And when you click allocate, so if you receive a transaction from a bank account for 3 months, you can split it. It's not a problem. And from the other side, I had many calls with users that their tenants pay in installment. So they have one payment, but 5 different transactions for this payment. So the way to do it is, let's go to the property that we use in the last example. And let's say that I received, let's delete those. So I received a payment, another payment for January rent. Call it extra payment of £200. Okay, so this is like the way it came from the bank account, just like did it manually. I just need to select the property, and then in the payment column, I click add to paid payment. And I will get the payment, and I can choose. So if you recall, this is like April, okay? We already allocated April. So there is like a payment attached to it, but I can add like another one. And I can decide if I want to see it on the rent collection page, if I want to see another row, or I want just to add the amount. So I will see 2,500. So if I create another row, I will click allocate. And then I go to my tenants, rent collection. Now you see 2 different rows of Ellen. One is 200, one is 2,300. You see that the expected was like, it's like another row. It was not expected payment. But let's say that the first payment was just like 2,100 and then it paid 200 more. You can still track it and attach it to the same payment. So this is like the other way to do it.
That's useful to know, Avram, as well. If you've had a tenant in rent arrears and you've agreed a payment plan with them, you could use this method to top up the rent with the payment plan as well, couldn't you?
Yeah. And we have another example. If you have like different sources that pay the same rent, I saw like another example. If you have some that subsidize the rent, or like he has like someone that pay half of the rent for him, and then it comes from different two different transactions. So you can use the two transactions to the same payment. So it's not a problem. You can do it by using the add to a payment feature that I just showed.
Yeah. Question from Rezar. He uses Go Cardless to collect rent. How would he be able to integrate that into Lendlord? Well, it appears as Go Cardless in your bank account. So it would just be the same allocation method, wouldn't it, Abraham?
Yeah. So the question is like, what are like, if he has the description of the transaction in the bank account, so the same description will be shown on the transactions page. So you will see it here or in the wizard that we showed like in the beginning. So if you know which expense is it, the description, then you can use it the same. So if this software integrates to your bank account, basically you see like the payment to bank account, and you integrate your bank account, you will see it as well in Landlord, so you can use the same method.
Yeah. 712190 would like to know, can you differentiate your expenses between portfolios if you have property in individual names and in a company name? The answer is yes, and we do have another webinar on that, which you can find in the Landlord Digital Life category on Property Tribes, or indeed on the Lendlord YouTube channel. That's a relatively straightforward thing to do. You just have to set up the different entities, whether it's an individual or a company, and then allocate accordingly. So Lendlord is very well set up to accommodate that.
Yeah.
Razar says, can you allocate receipts once uploaded to a transaction? And that's a yes as well, isn't it, Abraham?
Yes, so to upload receipts, so from the transactions page, currently we don't have it. So you need to allocate it first. And then from the profit and loss, you can do it by clicking on the monthly expenses box, click edit, and then hover over the expense and click on upload receipt. This is one way. Or you can do it from the expenses breakdown page. So you click on the link from the profit and loss page. And in expenses breakdown is very good, like to see where are you spend your cash. To see the list of all the expenses, you can upload also from here. Perhaps it's easier to see all the expenses and then upload all the receipts. And of course, you can also download if you already stored. This is like the way to download the receipts.
Jack would like to know, he has several properties with the same letting agent. The payments are given the property address reference. So would that be easy for Lendlord to allocate the rents to the respective properties if they're coming via the letting agent?
So I think this is, again, you just need to do it once.
Yeah.
So let's say you received an income and you have a reference. Okay, so, and you don't know which property is it. So look at your paper on the first time you do it. And then, okay, so this is this property, okay. By the way, it might be, we showed like the split. You can use the split if it's like a net income from your letting agent and you need to separate it to rent and management fees. You can do it from here, like income and expense. And then when you allocate it, yeah, I need a tenant, so wait a sec, we'll do it from like a different property. Yeah, I'm not sure like it was a 30 days, but Usually, if it's like the last 30 days, you will see the pop-up that will ask you if it's a recurring or not. You can try to do it from here. And then the reference, basically, the platform will remember the description. Let's try to do it from here. Yeah. So if you do like recurring here, so basically if you have ref 5444, and you attach it to a property and to a tenant, when you click allocate, next month, the platform will know that ref 4444 is 65 London and Ray. So it will attach it to a property and to a tenant. And you can review it. So if something went wrong, every week you will receive like an email with the summary of the transactions, and you have also the transactions log, so you can review everything from there.
Jolly good. Charlotte would like to know, is there a table or diary showing upcoming rental payments becoming due?
Yes, so I think the rent collection page, this is the diary. Basically, this is the payment schedule. So you can see all the tenants that you defined on the platform. You see the due date, when they need to pay, and the amount. So how much is expected. So basically, if you don't track it on time, or if they didn't pay, you will see it as an overdue payment. You can see on the alerts that every time that you have a payment overdue, you will get a notification here. You will also get an email notification. And here, basically, what you can do is either you miss the tracking, so track the payment. If you click here, it will basically take you to this page. Or you can send a reminder to your tenant. So if you store the email of the tenant, it will automatically, but you can also type in the email of the tenant. You can edit the message, and you can ask him to pay by sending email to your tenant. So it's also something you can do from the notifications sidebar.
Yeah, I would just like to add something to that, because I was speaking at the Tenant Satisfaction Summit earlier today, which was run by a company called Kiko, and it was an all-day event, and I was taking part in a session about tenant communication. And I think when a rental payment becomes overdue, and I'm sure I'm speaking to experienced landlords here who will agree with me, there can very often be a legitimate reason why the rental payment is late. And I think it's really important to foster really positive and open communication with your tenant. And if there is a late rental payment, don't jump in with your size 10s and get aggressive and angry. You need to contact them and say, oh, I've noticed the payment's a bit late. Is there a problem? What's happening? Do you need help with something? And just try and get a good understanding of the reason. And as I've said, there can very often be legitimate reasons why a payment is a few days late. And you need to really sound them out very softly to understand what's gone on. And I think particularly when we're all in such challenging circumstances coming out of lockdown and so on, that you know, an empathetic approach is very, very important to keep those lines of communication open, because the worst thing that can happen to any landlord-tenant relationship is if the tenant just blocks you and goes completely silent on you and won't respond to you, and that's when things start to really go downhill. So just in terms of managing rents and so on, my advice is to not make assumptions about why the payment is late, and just sound the tenant out very gently about what the issue is behind the late payment, and try and get some resolution with them in an amicable fashion, and move forward positively, keeping those lines of communication open. So I think it's just worth mentioning that, Aviram, because you know we've been through very difficult times for everybody in the last year, and there's still going to be you know, some issues and things that have brewed up during lockdown that are going to start coming out in the wash in the next few months. And I think we all need to be aware of that. Peter has just made a general comment. Peter says he's relatively new, but he's found Lendlord to be excellent. He said it's incredibly innovative and the pace of ongoing development is very swift. He says the main challenge, as Vanessa has said, is to find the time to set it up properly, but it's well worth doing that. And he says that he finds that the Xero integration is very appealing if you do already use that software. And he wants to say well done to Avaram for developing such impressive software products. So thank you, Peter, for your kind words of support. That's really good to have your feedback on that. Really appreciated.
One thing about what Peter said.
Yeah.
We know that this is the main challenge, the setup. And when I speak to user, I don't have time. I know I need to do that. So I can say two things. One, you can just start with adding like the basic details of your properties and start from now on. Don't take care of the historic. We are now like in April, finishing April. So just start with April 2021 and start track the ongoing expenses. The second thing I want to say, we are here to help. So I will put my Calendly on the chat in a second. And you can schedule a one-on-one training session with me. And we have the team that can help you on board, be on board like on Lendlord. So we are helping many, excuse me.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. So you can use the help of the team in terms of uploading your stuff, understanding how is the best way to set up. So feel free to reach out. We are available here in this chat box. And also, I will just put my Calendly link. I'm always happy to get calls with users. We learn a lot from it. And this is like the best way to improve the platform and answer your needs. So I will put it on the chat. Feel free to schedule a call with me.
Yeah. I've just noticed your battery's about to go, Avram. You might want to plug your computer in quickly. We've only got about another 5 minutes or so, and we've got a lot of questions coming in, so we'll quickly whiz through them. Would you allocate annual insurance on just a one-off annual payment or a monthly basis?
Good question. For now, we support only monthly recurring. So if you have annual payment of the policy of your insurance, just track it as a one-time payment. If you link to your bank account, so you don't worry, it will be always here. You just need to it's not automatically allocated. You just need to log into your platform, see their landlord insurance here, and allocate it as a one-time payment to the specific property. It's an expense, and then you can allocate it. So as a one-time, we don't have like annual recurring yet.
Good. James says, you've kind of partially answered this. He's been using Xero for 10 years. Are there any shortcuts to get all the existing data onto the Lendlord platform?
Yeah, so this is exactly what we showed. So I didn't do it like actually because we can't integrate now the my account of Xero, but you just follow the steps from the beginning of the webinar, link your Xero organization. What we retrieve right now is transactions. So we retrieve income and expense transactions from Xero. So this is the only data that we currently retrieve from Xero. It's interesting for me to ask what if there is any other data that he thinks that we should retrieve. I'd be happy to hear. If you can write it, even in the chat, I will read it after that.
Okay, if receiving rent from the agent as a net amount, i.e. less their fees, how would you allocate this? Well, the same as we've been demonstrating, wouldn't we? Yeah,
so if you get, let's say, 2,000 net amount from your agent, you can attach it to a property, click on split transaction. Then you can split it to one is your rent, the expense is the fee, same property. and just do it. So the rent was 22, the fee was 200, and then the amount remained 2,000. So this is the original transaction. And click split. And now you have like two different transactions. You have net amount fee, you can change it to rent if you want to recognize it as rent only. So basically, this is the best way to do it.
Okay. JD has asked me a question privately, but it's quite okay to ask it in the public domain. He or she is concerned about how secure the software is, because obviously it is cloud-based, and that is a bit of a stumbling block for them to start using it. Now, Avram, we've had this question many, many times, and we totally respect and understand people's concerns in this regards, but we are able to give comfort on that front, aren't we?
Yes, sure, definitely. So security is something that we take seriously since the beginning. We understand that we keep sensitive data. So yes, it's in the cloud, but it's again secured in the cloud under security groups. The communication is encrypted, all the passwords are hashed, and no one, there are like ongoing backups to the database, and no one can access your data. So we are not passing on any of your data to third parties. The only way is that if you see like an insight in the Lendlord platform and you want to apply with our provider, we will ask you to get your permission, and if you agree, we'll pass your contact details. And even if you have like an incident, like an issue with the platform, our team needs to get a written permission from you to access your data to take care of, like, investigate the issue. So we are very strict in terms of the rules, and like we keep. So security is like the number one priority for us.
Indeed. Ashley wants to know what the deal analyzer does. Well, actually, there are two deal analyzers, Ashley. There is just a standard analyzer to analyze a deal that you're looking to keep long term. And then there is also what is called the flip analyzer, which is obviously if you're doing buy to sell. What does it do? Well, it's deal analysis on steroids is how I describe it. It's by far the most comprehensive deal analyzer on the market. I say on the market, but it's free to use, so it's not quite to say it's on the market, but it's the most sophisticated deal analyzer out there. It gives you some really in-depth metrics, some which you may not know that you need to know, but they can help you assess a deal in in great depth, and this is so important. It's a big part of risk mitigation to understand how a deal stacks up. You can look at prospect properties and assess how they stack up. And you can look at how they're going to fit into your portfolio. So it's a really, really powerful tool when you're thinking of, acquiring a property. And the great thing is that it's very quick to use, and you might be looking at 10 different deals. You can analyze each of those 10 deals individually and compare the outcome that you get for each one. It will show you which is the strongest, and really help guide your your buying decisions. So it's a really strong tool, and it really is just there to help you find the best possible deals, and as I said, also to mitigate your risk. It's so important that your deals stack up financially. If they don't, they're not worth doing. And I know my friend John Howard, who's been in property for 40 odd years, he always says some of the best deals are the ones that you don't do, because you saw that they were poor deals and you walked away from them. So this software will tell you to walk away from a deal if necessary, and that's a good thing to know, because very common amateur mistake or newbie mistake is to think you've got a deal, and in fact it's not a deal at all, and it's going to really drag you down. So use it as a risk mitigation tool and to help you make wise decisions. And we did actually run a whole week on deal sourcing, where we spoke to lots of different people about how they source deals, how they assess deals, and went through all the deal analyzing software demonstrating on Lendlord. So you'd certainly be a good idea to go and have a look at that themed content if you're interested in diving deeper onto the deal analyzer. And we have a whole webinar explaining what all the different metrics are, what they mean, and how to interpret them. So hope that helps. Anything to add on the deal analyzer, Aviram?
No, I think you covered it great. Yeah, this is exactly what.
Okay. Jolly good. How does the landlord assess the market to provide information for deal analysis? Well, that is a good question. It's really down to comparables for both sale price and rental price. We're actually in such a hot market at the moment, it's actually quite tricky. So I guess do your comparables for both sales and rentals. And, when you're on the portals, do bear in mind that they're asking prices. So it's an asking price for a property for sale or an asking rental price. Now, the price that property achieves could be more, could be less. The rental price that property achieves could be more, could be less. So you can't go on what you see on the portals because they're just asking prices. So you actually need to really do your due diligence on sold comparables. And there are various different sites that you can use to do that. And one of the best things is to speak to local agents, because they're an absolute minefield of local knowledge, and they can really help you pinpoint the typical value for a 3-bed house in Green Lane or something, whatever it is you're looking at. They can really help you. I would also say perhaps err on the side of caution, be a little bit conservative with your figures, so that you don't over egg a deal and get a wrong result. And one of the great things that you can do is go onto Property Tribes and create a new thread asking people to critique your deal as well, so you can get feedback from other landlords as to whether a deal stacks up or not. But I think the number one thing for deals is actually something completely different, and that is tenant demand. Very often people create the supply and hope that there's a demand. That is the wrong way around. You have to find the demand first before you create the supply. So my advice is to always find the tenant demand first, and then start looking at the comparables and properties that meet that tenant demand. And another thing you can do actually is think about buying a property that's already tenanted, particularly if you're starting out, because that really does mitigate your risk very significantly, because you get income from day one. You know exactly how much rent the tenant is paying. You can check the tenant's payment history to see if they pay on time, and you can also check how the tenant has been keeping the property. So if you're a newbie starting out, I really recommend that you consider buying a tenanted property. It really does mitigate your risk. And you can go and look at the Vesta platform, which is the main platform and also partner of Property Tribes, where it's a marketplace for buying and selling tenanted properties, portfolios, HMOs and blocks of flats. So it's a very useful resource for anybody looking to increase their portfolio. Hope that helps. Ashley, you've got some questions that have really been dealt with in the previous webinar. You really should just sign up for a free Lendlord account and go and start looking at the deal analyzer software. It's all there. It's free to use, and we can direct you to the webinar where we brought in Brian, who was part of the team who developed the deal analyzer with Aviram, and he went into great detail about what all these different metrics mean, how you interpret them, etc. So we haven't really got time for that tonight, I'm afraid, Ashley, but if you want to contact me, I can certainly direct you to the relevant previous content. Okay, I'm just mindful of the time, Aviram. Is there anything else that you wanted to wind up with?
Yeah, Adrian asked, I think it's important, he asked if currently manage his properties, and if he will start manage the tenants and expanding, there is a cost associated. So the core functionality of Landlord is free to use. But if you want to link your bank account or link Xero, then there is a cost, like a monthly charge in doing so, because there are costs involved also for us. And then it's like £12 if you're like on a yearly plan, and 15 if you're like a monthly plan, in order like to basically get the full automation and link your bank account or Xero. And if you upgrade to the premium plan, you will also have, we spoke about the deal analyzer, like unlimited postcode searches. The deal analyzer is free, you can do whatever you want. But if you want to deep dive into postcode information and more like enhanced data from different sources, then you have only 3 searches. But if you upgrade to the premium plan, you have everything included. But of course, you can use the platform functionality, and there are many users that do the tracking just manually. Just you need to log into your account every month, type in all the transactions, and allocate them. So it's like another way. You can also upload spreadsheet. It's free. So there are also like free ways to do it.
Fantastic. Okay, well, we're out of time now, but we do value all of your questions and we are more than happy to answer them. So what I propose that you do, if you didn't get an answer to your question tonight, is to go onto the Lendlord chat bot, which is bottom right on the Lendlord website, and ask your question there. Alternatively, this recorded webinar will be posted to Property Tribes tomorrow morning. And if you've got any questions, we do really welcome them. We want to answer them, but we are just mindful of the time. We do try and start and finish on time because we respect that you have an evening ahead of you as well. So just really to say, Avram, as always, we're delighted that we've had so many people joining us, ask such great questions, and really thank everybody for their time this evening.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Vanessa. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, cheers, everybody. Have a good weekend.